a year to help the places that they serve. He said that evangelical Christians, which we fall into that category of all Christians, evangelical Protestants scored the best, and that only 10% gave away nothing. Evangelicals tend to be the most generous, but they do not outperform their peers enough to wear a badge of honor. 36% report that they gave away less than 2% of their income, and only about 20% of them actually tithe in the sense of the literal letter of the word, which is a tenth of their income. Economists sometimes view recession as necessary purging of excessive behavior, correcting irrational investments in stocks, as it was in the 1920s, or in tulips, which apparently people were investing in the 17th century in Holland. And perhaps the current correction, as families learn to live on less and depend on each other more, will make American Christians become more generous. It would be a correction long overdue. American Christians' lack of generosity might not be as shocking if it didn't contrast starkly with their astonishing wealth. This is what these researchers found. That committed American Christians, and this is how they define committed American Christians, those who say that their faith is very important to them and who attend church at least twice a month. Okay, so that's a pretty good definition of, at least in our mind, what we would say, general Christians in America. That's that group. Of those people, they earn, those who their faith is very important and attend church at least twice a month, this is American Christians, earned more than, a little over, $2.5 trillion last year. That's a lot of money. I don't care who you are, that's a lot of money. Bill Gates ain't even dreaming of ever making that much money, right? That's $2.5 trillion a year is a lot of money. Let me help you understand just how much money that is. If you were to take those American Christians that make that much money and put them into their own country, they would be country number 7 in the G7 summit. They would be the 7th wealthiest nation in the world by themselves. That's impressive. Okay? On their own, they'd be able to be, by themselves, the 6th largest economic country in the world if they were by themselves. These researchers estimated that if these Christians gave away a tithe, a 10% of their after-tax earnings, they would add to what is already being given through charitable donations of churches and tithes and offerings. They would add to that $46 billion a year towards ministry. $46 billion. This is American Christians. $46 billion a year. My mind doesn't even think in that big of numbers. So let me help you figure out exactly what that means. The UN, their annual operating budget is $1.8 billion. That's the UN. Y'all have heard of the World Health Organization? Right? Their annual operating budget every year is $500 million. $46 billion for the cause of Christ worldwide. Do you think we could change some stuff with that? Do you think that we could maybe slightly impact the nation of Haiti with $6 billion? Do you think that we could maybe get some water wells dug somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa with $1 billion? Do you think that something could happen if we had the ability to say, hey, we can cover that? It'll work. That's insane. But the truth is, when you average all the people who attend church on a regular basis in American church life, the average is a gift of less than 1% of their annual income per year. Less than 1%. Now guys, listen, I'm not here to harp on stuff, and you guys, if you've been in church walls long enough, you know, man, we are a lean church. We squeak when we walk. And Absolutely, we squeak when we walk. We are tight. And we are not about, hey man, give us lots of money, we want lots of money. That's what we're all about. We don't pass an offering plate. Our offering box sits out there on the table. We generally don't make a big deal out of it. We try to be as transparent with all this kind of stuff. But guys, there's something that I want us to know that I think is going to impact us, and I think will impact the gospel in a very profound way. And it's this, that Jesus, the one that we serve, the one that we model after, the one that we are pursuing our lives to be like, is generous. And if we desire to be like Him, we will find out that we have got to be generous. And we're going to find out what that looks like and what that means. Take a look with me to 2 Corinthians chapter 8. We're going to be starting in verse 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, starting in verse 1. Paul is writing to the church in Corinth, and he's been dealing with a number of different theological issues, just tons of different subjects. And now he turns to an area of generosity or of biblical stewardship and supporting the work of ministry as they were tending to the needs of Christians and encouraging them and starting new churches and all of these kind of things. And the church in Corinth was a pretty well-off church. They were doing pretty good for themselves. And Paul begins writing in verse 1. He says, "And now, brothers, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches." What he is doing here is he's beginning, and he's basically going to say, let me show you what it means to receive the grace of God and to look like God. And he uses this church in Macedonia to be an example for them. And he doesn't go in a lot to them, and he's going to give us a snapshot. But let me put it in perspective for you. At the time that he was writing this, the church in Macedonia was in much a similar situation as the church in Haiti is today. Okay? So that's the attitude that that's where they are as he's writing this letter to a well-off church. And this is what he says. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able and even beyond their ability, entirely on their own. In fact, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in service to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord and then to us in keeping with God's will. So we urged Titus, since he had earlier made a beginning, to bring also to completion this act of grace on your part. But just as you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in complete earnestness, and in love for us, see that you also excel in the grace of giving. I am not commanding you, and that's key. He says, I'm not commanding you. This is not a command. But I want to test you, or test the sincerity of your love by comparing it with the earnestness of others. For you know that the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you, through his poverty, might become rich. And here is my advice about what is best for you in this matter. Last year you were the first not only to give, but also to have the desire to do so. Now finish the work, so that your eager willingness to do it may be matched by your completion of it, according to your means. And that's key also, according to your means. For if the willingness is there, the gift is acceptable according to what one has, not according to what he does not have. Our desire is not that others might be relieved while you are hard-pressed, but that there might be equality. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn, their plenty will supply what you need. Then there